Hey everybody, welcome back. It's time to practice the concept application FRQ, so let's do it. Alright, so I'm going to walk you through the process of writing the concept application FRQ, so let's get right to it. Hey, real quick, do me a favor, hit that like button before you forget. Okay, this is from the officially released practice exam from 2018. Pause the video and read the entire scenario first. Now, this particular scenario isn't really too complicated, but sometimes they are. If you read it and don't really understand the details, don't worry about it. You're not supposed to have any prior knowledge about it. If you know your gov content, you'll be fine. Here are the prompts for this FRQ. Now, what we're going to do is going to be a little different than normal. I'm not going to write this FRQ. This one's too easy. One of the changes they've made to the concept application FRQ for this year is that you won't be describing a single institution in isolation. Notice that the prompt will be about how concepts interrelate. So in an effort to give you practice that might be more reflective of this change, I've rewritten the prompts for this FRQ. Because interactions are typically reserved for explain prompts, I've decided to make all three parts of this FRQ an explain. Remember, when you explain, you have to describe anyway before you get to the elaboration, evidence, and closing the loop that you do for an explain. When in doubt, it's always better to give too much information than not enough. Before we start writing, I want you to notice this. Part A, in the scenario. Part B and C, in the context of the scenario. Your answers have to specifically address the scenario to earn points. You cannot write about Congress or the bureaucracy in general. You must address those institutions in the context of this EpiPen scandal. Let's look at Part A. It says, explain how powers of Congress and the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, might lead to controversy regarding the proper action to be taken in response to the comments outlined in the scenario. Before we can answer the prompt and talk about controversy, we first need to describe the relevant powers of both Congress and the FDA. Okay, so let's pause here and make sure to note a couple of things. First, we jump right into answering the prompt. There's no intro or anything like that. Next, notice that I put the letter A to begin my answer. College Board is specifically telling students to do that this year. Notice I begin my response by accurately describing the relevant powers of the FDA and Congress. I talk about the rulemaking power of the bureaucratic agency and the legislative power of Congress. Even though the prompt didn't say describe and explain, I write my answer as if it did. Now I'm ready to explain how this could lead to controversy. This is a very thorough explanation of how controversy could arise. In fact, this might be slightly more detailed than you'd need, but I don't want you to take any chances. You've worked hard. You know your material. Don't leave the reader unsure if you did enough to earn the point. Leave no doubt. Notice that I closed the loop at the end, specifically addressing controversy once again. Now look at Part B. In the context of the scenario, explain how the interactions between Congress and the FDA can be affected by the federal judiciary. Before we get to the judiciary, we have to discuss how the interactions between Congress and the FDA could lead to a court case in the first place. This is a very detailed explanation of the interactions between Congress and the FDA. This answer doesn't require any specialized knowledge of the FDA. Look at what I'm really saying. Congress passes broad laws that leave it to the bureaucratic agencies to fill in the gaps. That's really it. Everything else is just me putting it in the context of the scenario for my reader. Because this is an explain, I'm going to include a specific example. Again, strictly speaking, this portion of my response may not be 100% necessary, but look how much stronger it makes my answer. Again, my goal is to leave no doubt. Finally, I specifically address actions that the judiciary could take that would affect Congress and the FDA. Lastly, let's take a look at Part C. In the context of the scenario, explain how the United States federal system can affect the interactions between Congress and the FDA. Start by describing federalism. Don't just use vocab terms like that without showing that you understand them. Next, I have a pretty detailed description of actions that states could take because they're empowered to do so in our federal system. I mentioned that states can make different policies responding to the issue. One state might forbid drug companies from raising prices, while others might allow them to charge whatever they want. Lastly, I connect these state actions with the interaction between Congress and the FDA to show how they're affected as a result of federalism, connecting it through the idea of laboratories of democracy, so Congress and the FDA could observe what happens in those states, and that could influence what they decide to do. And you're done. Listen, I know I wrote some really detailed responses here, but I wanted to model for you a great FRQ response, where you leave no doubt, you show the reader that you definitely know exactly what you're talking about. Now, you guys have 15 minutes to write, plus 5 more minutes to include the upload portion of the exam, so make sure you do the best you can in that time frame that you do have. Keep up the good work, you guys are going to pass this AP exam for sure. Until next time, this has been a La Money production. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Do me a favor and smash that like button. Check out the Ultimate Review Packet, and I'll see you next time.